Welcome to the Pondcast, the destination for insightful discussions and interviews on the appreciation, conservation, and husbandry of reptiles, with a focus on turtles and tortoises. Now, let's join our team of turtle nerds.
That was all CG.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of your favorite nerd podcast, The Turtle Room. We're excited here to be here without Chris. Sorry for the false advertising for with the lead-in intro with Chris there. He's on a lovely vacation with his lovely family, and he won't be here with us tonight. Thank you so much for your patience with that. Kevin and I are going to try to carry the load, so to speak, today, but we're not concerned at all. We've got a wonderful guest who this has been a long time coming, I think. Don't get all modest now. You were talking about how handsome you were before the live.
True.
That was terrific. I really love that. I just love that. So Jordan Donini, right?
Or
correctly?
Donini. It's Donini.
Donini.
It's Italiano. Yeah.
Donini.
Yeah,
Did
there
you
you
see
go.
it in the lead-in also me talking with I should have gotten that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've always read it. I'm like, it can't really be pronounced another way.
Yeah.
But yeah, Donini. I didn't know
Donini.
there were Italians in South Florida that weren't retirees.
Yeah. There's a couple of us.
You got some breakaway pants you just rock on the
Yes.
regulars?
Exactly.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Jordan.
Happy to be here.
Really look forward to it. I know not only are you an academic, but you're somebody who really has a good connection to just the turtle world in general that you're still building on. But I think you're somebody who kind of gets both sides. Don't let me tell everyone what you are without you actually saying it. But somebody who we really respect, Chris Lekowitz, is somebody who you know really well. I don't mean to jump into that. Yeah, a lot of these podcasts start with like, "Hey, tell me about how you got into turtles and tortoises," and we'll get there at some point. But I don't like to just lead off with that. So I think talking about you, who you are. Chris Lekowitz is somebody who's really close to Steve and is a good friend of us at the Turtle Room, who we really respect. And he's someone who I think sees both sides too, even though he's in a position where he should be really focusing on turtles in the wild, but he also sees the benefit of working hand in hand with people who might be interested in kind of the husbandry side. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, if you've ever met Chris Lekowitz, you've met one of the nicest human beings on the planet. Probably not a more passionate person in terms of turtle conservation out there. And as I was kind of telling y'all before we started, I met Chris when I was 14 years old at working at a pet store in high school. He had just moved down from Illinois, and then we encountered each other again at a local herp society meeting. And then it was probably maybe a decade until we actually talked together again. I started working at a wildlife clinic on Sanibel Island, and he works at the Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation. We started chatting, and he's like, you're still in with the research. We're still doing the same kind of things together, and maybe we should work together. And I've been working together with Chris for like the almost last decade now on a bunch of different projects, and he is just awesome in terms of the impact he's had on the conservation of Florida turtles, and also just in general in terms of advancing husbandry of turtles and things like that. He is really the definition of the best of both worlds, as you were kind of discussing. Yeah, he's absolutely awesome.
Yeah, that's great. And I appreciate that. And thanks for letting me take it in a weird direction first.
Yeah,
I didn't warn you I was going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep you on your toes here because I know you can handle it.
Hey, I'm ready. Bring it.
Tell me about Florida Southwestern, because it's not a school that I've heard about.
It's a smaller school. It's gone through a couple of name changes. It's they kind of did like this sort of rebranding with a lot of community colleges in the state of Florida. A lot of them are no longer community colleges. They've been turned into state colleges because they offer some like 4-year programs and things like that. And I talk with my hands a lot like a typical Italian, so be ready for that. Donini. So you're gonna see me like dribbling a basketball upside down. There's gonna be a lot of it. but
miming to juggling.
Exactly, juggling. Exactly. But yeah, it started off as an Edison Community College, then kind of moved into Edison State College. And then its most recent change has been to Florida Southwestern State. And there's several campuses throughout Southwest Florida region: Lee, Charlotte, Collier, Hendry Glades County, and they kind of serve a very diverse student body. And it's just it's fantastic. I actually went here for my 2-year degree, my associates, when I first started college, when it was still Edison Community College, and now I'm back teaching here, which is kind of a nice full circle moment to kind of give back to the first place that I started my academic journey. And I couldn't ask for a better department. I couldn't ask for better coworkers. Additionally, I mean, they are so gung ho about me doing research and support me in so many different ways. They're absolutely just fantastic with the support for my project in terms of just being just morally supportive, but also financially supportive. We've gotten a lot of grant funding directly through internal grants with the school, which has been fantastic. I love it here.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I see this trend in. Oh, go ahead, Kev.
I was just going to ask, I mean, honestly, I love the fact that you're working at where you were taught. You know, I think that giving back is amazing.
Yeah.
But did they reach out to you, or do you proactively go out towards them?
So when I finished graduate school, and we can get into that kind of stuff later on, of course, but I moved back to hometown with my wife, Naples. I got a job at a local high school, Lely High School, and the Collier campus for FSW happened to be a block away. So I started working there as an adjunct, teaching night classes. And then a full-time position became available, and I immediately applied for that. And because I'd kind of apparently made a good enough impression with the folks doing my adjuncting, they really liked what I had. They loved my interview, and they brought me on full-time because of apparently everything that I brought with me. I mean, obviously, it's going pretty well. So it was something that I sought out, but they also were looking for good, motivated professors to add on to the thing. So it kind of worked out from both sides.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Anthony, I got one more question if that's cool with you.
Well, I mean, I'll forget what I wanted to say by the time I do it. Go ahead.
That's fine. So you're very prevalent on social media, out there with your students, doing research with the animals. How much of your time is spent out there in the field with your students versus like in the classroom?
Yeah, so this is where a lot of people are like, how does this happen? And it's not, I don't mean to tout my own horn here a little bit, but FSW is predominantly a teaching institution. So 60% of what you do here is supposed to be teaching oriented, whereas at R1 universities, you predominantly focus on research and things like that. So I teach anywhere between 6 and 8 classes a semester. Which is a lot of classes. Yeah, it's a lot of classes. It's because this is a teaching institution. But I am so passionate about research. I've been able to incorporate my research into a course format where students are able to get independent research science credits for doing my research. So we're in the field, depending on season and specific project, we're targeting anywhere from 2 to 3 days a week. And I'm teaching 4 days a week, plus meetings and things like that, but we're at minimum in the field 2 to 3 days a week, which cool. And I mean, that's usually at least a half a day's worth of work each day. So it's a lot of activity. We keep busy.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
do you think
really cool.
The university or the college? Sorry, I don't look for a second. Like, wait a minute, because what are they calling themselves? The semantics here.
State college.
Do you think that the college's support of your fieldwork and the research has something to do with that kind of grow or die mentality that we see in like healthcare and academia, where you have to keep doing cool stuff that's going to attract more students and that sort of thing? They see it as something that they can kind of.
I think there's certainly some aspects, not necessarily the grow or die aspect, but it's attractive to students. Not a lot of community colleges and state colleges offer research experience. I mean, I know we do. And then another huge one is Santa Fe Community College or Santa Fe State College now up in Gainesville with, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Jerry Johnson on the Santa Fe River Turtle Project. He's been working on turtles in the spring. Just so happens to be another turtle project, but huge research potential with them up there. But a lot of state colleges don't necessarily have fully accessible research opportunities. And I think adding active field research and skill building in wildlife research was very attractive to the college to add to the repertoire, and they've been able to use it as a recruitment tool. Absolutely. So, but I don't necessarily think it's like a grow or die thing. They have so many other really cool programs going on They've got a nursing program, 4-year nursing program. They've got a 4-year dental program, I think, and they've got I believe a teaching certification program here as well. So they've got a lot of other things that kind of have steady income, but this is just kind of a nice cherry on top to bring in maybe some of those students that they would go to a 4-year college to start getting research experience right away. But hey, why not go to the state college for cheaper and get other experiences, but pay half the price?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're still getting the same general experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Or better, I mean, but I'm biased.
Right. There it is. There's that.
You're allowed to be
confidence
biased. If it has to do with
take
you,
10
you're allowed
minutes?
to be.
12 minutes? I know. He's the coolest, right? Oh, I get so excited to have people like you on the podcast because I
I'm not
know
sure we've
that.
had. I'd say I'm not sure we had many guests that jump right in and so comfortable right off the bat.
I teach and talk to people all day.
Yeah.
So it's really easy for me, and I think my dad's watching. That's kind of a gift I get from my dad. My dad's always had the gift of gab, and I think I inherited that from him. My dad could go up to any stranger and be like, "Hey, how's it going? Want to hear about my day? Want to talk about something? Let's talk." And I've definitely acquired that from my dad, and I think it makes me a lot more approachable than some folks.
All right,
What's
cool.
your dad
we'll
doing?
We'll book Tim soon for the show.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you. That's what I was gonna say. What's he doing the first Monday in June? Okay.
My dad,
Right.
my dad is the best. He
really
works he works at shoot, I'm blanking on the name. It's that grocery chain that's associated with Amazon. I'm blanking on it.
Whole Foods.
That's it. Yeah, he's at Whole Foods, and he's just worked hard his whole life, and him and my mom have provided just such an awesome opportunity for me to chase my dreams and end up where I'm at. So if you're watching, don't cry, guys, but thank you so much. I love you.
Now, did your parents nurture your interest in reptiles at a young age?
So for the longest time, they tried to fight it. They did, because as all of us probably know from similar experiences, bringing weird stuff into the house has some drawbacks. So they fought it for a long time. But then as soon as I kind of got to high school, they're like, okay, this kid's serious about this stuff. He really, really loves this stuff. So then they just kind of gave up, and I got to bring whatever pets home I wanted. And my entire room was basically a vivarium. They got me a snake hook for Christmas when I was 14. I still have the snake hook. They got me that classic, the completely illustrated atlas to amphibians and reptiles in captivity, that 80s book, the big red one, if anybody's familiar with that. So they really started nurturing it, especially in high school. They're like, okay, this is actually really seems like what he wants to do, so we'll nurture it on. So did that bite them in the butt a couple of times? Asked the ball python that was loose in my house for 6 months. But they were very supportive once it kind of got around to it.
I don't know anyone that has reptiles that haven't had escapes in their house.
Yeah.
I think the worst for me was a colony of gnolls running around our house for a little bit until winter came, and they just suddenly disappeared.
They disappeared. Yeah, at one point in time, we had 2 snakes loose in the house. My mom didn't know because she hated the fact that I had snakes. My dad knew because he was like, okay, no big deal. If we find them, we'll find them. We had a ball python and a yellow rat snake loose in the house growing up, and the python ended up popping up after a cold front came through, just hanging out on a toilet seat one day. Luckily, I was the one using the restroom to find it, and then the rat snake came up a bathtub dream. so we got them both back at least.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have to share a story. I'm sorry. I'm going to take in that direction. But my mother married my stepfather, I want to say 10 or 11 years ago. And they asked me to speak. But this was not a big time wedding. They were a little bit older, as you might guess, second marriages for them. So it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't like they asked me months in advance and I prepared something really profound, some good Mark Twain stuff to drop on everybody. It was quite the contrary. And I wanted to go a route to say this great guy, he's at the time I was living at home right after college and trying to figure everything out. And I had turtles in my childhood bedroom and stuff. It was a total mess. It's a very dark time in my life that I don't like to talk about. So I'm embarrassed already. My forehead's getting sweaty, but I said something about losing a map turtle in the house, and he found it in the bathroom, and he was so cool about it. And I told this story to a group of people, and everyone in the audience, I could just remember being like Lee Trevino in Happy Gilmore, where they're all just like, what is this dude telling this story? This is so bad. Anyway, I don't know why I wanted to tell that story, but you guys understand. But
Yes.
the people at that wedding didn't really understand, and my stock took a hit that day for sure. Just saying.
That's right. You're making up for it now by talking to school kids. You know,
There you go.
doing lessons.
Okay.
Yeah, the classes.
Okay. I thought you were gonna say
you
now.
know,
like,
you know Jordan Danini, you know, but
Adonini.
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 I have no Italian in me.
Yeah.
I have Italian dogs. I like Italian scooters, but when it comes to the
You know-
genetics, I'm sorry.
It's probably a good thing that Chris wasn't here because that would almost be too much Italian heritage in one room. It might have gotten
I
pretty
know.
pretty crazy. So
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Who invited the Irish guy?
Exactly.
I'm like a -5 on the Fitzpatrick scale.
Is that an actual unit of measurement? That's the real question.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
You-
But it's like
You know what's
1 through
weird
5.
though is I've I've got a lot of Italian in me, obviously Danini, but I'm obviously a redhead, and I was born on St. Patrick's Day, so everybody's like,
Oh yeah,
"Oh, you must be Irish," and I was like, "I really don't think I have much Irish in me at all."
yeah. No,
But-
you're with me, buddy.
There we go. So I don't know where I'm at on that Fitzpatrick scale, I guess.
Happy belated birthday then.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Happy
stopped
belated
counting after
birthday.
30. We stopped counting after 30. So
Yes, we do.
Oh, I've been
Yes,
30
we do.
like 46 times now. It seems.
that's nice.
Seems. So it seems.
Uh,
So Steve's talking to us. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. So I also just want to say thank you because I don't think I touched on this, but like we had a guest. You were lined up for what month is it now? So you were going to come in May,
Next month.
and
Yeah.
then we had a guest lined up, and then it became apparent that we weren't going to be able to get them. So when did I reach out? Friday night?
Yeah,
Friday
maybe Friday
night.
or Saturday night, maybe.
Yeah, to ask you
Yeah.
to do this early, and you were like, "Yeah, man, no problem." And I think that's just like that's you, and that's your approach, and you're so awesome. You don't have to be as cool as you are. So, thank
Do
you
my
so
best.
much,
No
and thank you
problem.
everyone who had the patience when we were getting
Yeah.
this started a few minutes late. Things just went crazy, but it was part of the behind the scenes stuff. And Steve worked his butt off. We were commenting on how he's like the bomb squad behind the scenes trying to save the world for us, and nobody gets to see it. But Jordan is getting a taste of this right now, and a taste of his 12-ounce beverage as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. I just wanted to give that little bit of a
Happy to be here now.
disclaimer for everyone. Yeah.
yeah. So we'll also see
so-
you next month. I'm assuming, right? We'll do
Yeah,
this
if you
all over again?
we're this is gonna be a two-parter. I could eat if we're talking turtles or
Yeah.
NFL football, I can talk forever. So whatever you want to talk about. If you want to
Prove
do,
it.
yeah. Oh, challenge
My
accepted, friend.
My plan was that we might get new guests next time, so we'll start fresh. We'll ask the same questions. We'll see what happens.
There you go.
Just make up all kinds of crazy stuff. Be like, "Why'd you get into school and research?" You're like, "Well," and I don't know what to say. Make something ridiculous up.
I'll make a
It's
a real
character
show
between
next
now
time.
and next week.
Good idea.
Yeah.
I think he should be the more Italian version, the
Oh.
Donini version.
Don't need.
Well, started to study a turtle.
Hey, so this isn't
Tortuga.
really good for the bag, but Michael wants to know, is Peroni a favorite of any of you Italians here? I don't know what Peroni
Peroni the
is.
beer.
I don't even know what that is. Yeah, sorry. I
All
guess
right,
I'm
let
not
me
that
tell you
Italian.
something, Michael. Gentlemen, I'll take this one.
Okay.
let the 400-pound Italian answer this one. So
It's a lot of beers.
I made homemade ravioli yesterday. Okay,
Yeah.
with a
Big
pasta
sheets
maker.
like
With
this big each.
yeah, I made I made with the fresh dough and everything, and it's like an 8-cheese ravioli. That's what I'm dealing with. When I went to Italy to play basketball, they have a Peroni that is like it's like their Budweiser. It's a brown bottle with a red label, and it's Peroni, but it's totally different. What's Peroni here in America is called like Nastro Azzurro in Italy. But that was like my favorite beer I ever had in my life. I'm not much of a beer guy. I don't love it. Every once in a while, like every 6 months, I really want a beer. But so take it for what it's worth. But yes, I like Peroni. It's my favorite beer, especially the Italian version. The beer in America that's most like the Italian version of Peroni is called Moretti. Check that out. Check that out if you
So
want a good
for-
Italian beer.
So for any of you watchers out there that want to send Anthony a nice gift, gifts. Send them some Proni or Moretti. You know, if you're in Italy, let's get it imported for them because
I think it's illegal to ship beer, but that's okay.
Is it?
Yeah.
Hops are native to certain areas and invasive.
It could be.
Hops are CITES listed. You gotta be careful with that.
ESA, man.
Good stuff. Mm-hmm. The good stuff is not easy to come by.
So I want to bring it back to you clearly, and I'm not the host, but I'm just jumping in. You work with quite a few different species, right, with your students. So I know there's Diamondback Terrapins. You got Florida box turtles. Anthony was telling me Bowery as well, 3 straight box turtles. Yeah, I see it. I see it behind you. Is there one that you spend more time with that you're trying to like do more research on? And why did you choose those 3 out of like the myriad of like animals that are in Florida?
Yeah. So box turtles were kind of an afterthought originally, but we've stumbled upon a site that's become extremely, extremely interesting to work at, and it's turned out to be a really just dense site in terms. So as many of you know, with studies, sample size is always king. The more samples you can get, the better. So this site has become very good for getting a good number of turtles for specific studies. So box turtles for about the last year and a half have kind of taken precedence of the study, just because number one, finding sites with good box turtle populations in South Florida is a really difficult thing to do. And this place happens to be a place where we can get good numbers. So we've been really putting our energy into that. And also it's been really great, a great spot to kind of teach students how to do things. One of our sites is a very small restricted area, but we've got some box turtles radio tagged there, and it's kind of like our training ground. So all the students go out to this site to learn how to radio track first. And it's like, you know, it's only a few acres wide, so you can't really lose the turtle. It's easier to find, and then once they get good there, then they can move to the big times and go to one of the other bigger sites and kind of cut their jip out there. But box turtles have definitely taken precedence, not only because of that, but because we're finding so much damn interesting stuff about them down here. Like, it seems like we learn something new about them every time we're out in the field. It's just absolutely mind-boggling. Originally, terrapins were supposed to kind of be the number one apple of my eye, and they're still my favorite turtle. But they're so hard to get good samples from down here in terms of size of samples, and it's pretty intensive trapping efforts to get terrapins down in South Florida. Unlike you lucky folks up there in the Northeast, where you walk down a dirt road near a marsh and it's like, oh, there's 200 terrapins nesting today.
Sure, but those are northern diamondbacks. You know, like in Florida, you have 5 of the subspecies. You have a much wider area to find out different animals. You know. So when you do that, are you primarily focused on Macrospelota, or are you going down into like
the answer is it's kind of we're not sure yet, because we're kind of in an area where they phenotypically exhibit features of macros and also of a rhizophora.
So you're in like Fort Myers down there?
I don't want to give specific areas away just because of poaching issues.
Look,
I will say we work between Tampa Bay all the way to the Keys. I have permits through all of those counties throughout those areas, and we work throughout all of them. So
you Diamondback guys are like a bunch of vultures.
Not at all, man.
What localities you got going on there, bro?
Look, I'm well versed on what's where and where to go, you know. But unfortunately for me, I can't leave Connecticut to get anywhere, so we're good.
But yeah, we kind of work.
Kevin's
with
asking for a friend.
Yeah.
No, not
He's
at all.
asking for a friend in Asia.
I keep a few suspects. I don't know anybody in Asia to keep stealing my logos and photos, you know. No, I keep a few subspecies up here in Connecticut. Honestly, my favorite is the northerns, and I can't keep them.
Because they're native,
Yeah, but I'm a quarter mile from the ocean, so I can just go.
So you can go see them anyway and enjoy them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. I put binoculars out, I see 30 in an afternoon.
Yeah. But you're right. That is one of the cool things about Florida is the diversity of the phenotypes that are down here in the subspecific populations. It's really cool. I think I've only seen technically 3 subspecies. I've never been on the East Coast side to look for them, really.
Okay.
Yeah, so no Tequesta, and I'm not seeing anything above Florida, except
Okay.
for the Gulf Coast. I worked with Pileata and technically Littoralis over on the Gulf Coast, but where I was working with them, they both both phenotypes are present in one metapopulation in Louisiana.
Yeah.
So we got
And
ones
they're
that
like
look like
nearly
Texans.
identical.
Yeah, and genetically they are identical. So
really? Okay.
Yeah, the genetics basically sync kind of a lot of the subspecific ideas, especially in the Gulf Coast, like across Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, they're like the same. Even if they do show those phenotypes, genetically they're the same. But without getting too much of a nerd, I never like to just rely on genetics to be the total end all be all, because I think there is a lot more to it with like life history and how they look. I mean, if things look super different, there might be a functional reason for why they look different. So there might be something to look into. So without getting into too much of a speciation and taxonomy nerd, I'll leave it at that.
No, I mean, look, I think you should go for it. Like not many guests that we have on do that. And like while this is a fun podcast for us to joke around and whatnot, sometimes it's nice to get into the nitty gritty of things like that.
Yeah.
I recently picked up a book from my library, and the first 120 pages were taxonomy history, and I'm like, I don't need 120 pages of this. I'll go on Wikipedia and read it in like a little block.
Yeah.
But I was very fascinated by it.
It really is fascinating. But oftentimes taxonomy turns into such a pissing contest. I mean, I don't know. Sorry. Can we swear a little bit on here? Is that okay? Pissing.
I don't think pissing's a swear.
We'll allow that. We'll allow that.
Just
get carried away.
Okay.
It's not totally devoted.
Okay.
Sure.
Charlie Moorcroft is watching, and he's sensitive.
But taxonomy, like, there's so many arguments across like what seems like semi-arbitrary things with like there's the whole big like indigo snake argument going on right now. Is the Gulf Coast indigo its own species? And you've got like one crew at Auburn saying no, it's not because of this, and you got the crew in Florida that's like, actually look at this. And there's so many arguments, and realistically, I mean, who cares? As long as we're protecting the species, that's what I mostly care about. I don't care if we want to slump them or split them, as long as we're keeping them protected. That's my big concern.
Right. No, can I ask a question? I just have to, because everything that's happened the past few months in Florida, and what's starting to happen, what's continuing to happen with laws around reptiles, specifically diamondbacks as well, and the fact like that the way we led in the show, the way that I decided to kind of go against the grain a little bit, go against our own grain, and as well. But talking about how you kind of you're friendly with people on both ends of that, animal people on both ends of that. What are your thoughts, understanding that just your own opinion, even though you're entitled to it, can make people angry?
So in terms of terrapins specifically, or like captive laws? Okay, because
either.
Okay.
Both.
I mean, so like the big one that kind of came about recently was the iguana and tegu ban. I'm like 50-50 on that. Like, tegus, we have scientific evidence showing they can potentially eat, and they do eat native species. They are cold and thermal tolerant, so they can potentially spread up the peninsula. We know there's populations likely in Georgia, maybe South Carolina now. That's a species that I think should be regulated. I think that is a species that should be on lists, and I'm in favor of the some of the sanctions they put on those. Iguanas have been here since when?
50s, 40s, I don't
50s. Maybe if we got on board the elimination train, in the 70s, there would be a big, a better chance of stopping. At this point, they're here in Florida. They're not going to go away unless you undertake massive eradication efforts. And people having iguanas, I don't think is going to make the population any greater or really risk the spread, because they're not cold tolerant. At least the green iguanas aren't cold tolerant like some of the other species. So I don't think there's as much of a risk of them spreading through other areas. Kind of the big argument was they may cost infrastructure a lot of money, because there was like one incident where maybe one iguana dug a burrow near an old bridge, and that caused some damage. But that's just kind of one example, and probably I don't know enough about the incident, but maybe an example that was exacerbated by an old bridge. So iguanas I don't really see at this point, unless we're going to take on a full-on death squad approach and eradicate, get snipers out there, which some places do to help keep populations under control. I don't think iguanas necessarily needed to be put on the ban list, but tegus all on board for because of the threat they pose. We know they eat native turtles too, and that's always near and dear to my heart that they can eat those. So I don't want that happening.
And they're real fast, man. They're real fast.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, there are some people that are really good, I guess, like private trappers that are excellent at trapping them. And then I know a couple of folks that are doing like actual like setting like drift fence traps and baited traps, like cat traps and things like that to catch them. But man, they are an impressive species, and I think it's smart to stop that spread if we can before it gets any worse.
Yeah, sure. I saw this documentary on Netflix. I think it was Netflix a while back about tegus, and there was this guy down in Florida that his sole job was trapping tegus so that he can sell them into the pet market overseas.
Yep.
So he's doing like making money while helping people out.
And I don't know the law specifically enough, but I think some people may still be able to do out of state sell and stuff like that. And I think that might be okay because it basically encourages going out and getting wild ones and getting them out of the wild, sending them somewhere else, especially if it's going overseas. Like I don't have any issue with that at all. And I mean, there's obviously sides of both stories. I know there's a lot of people that their livelihoods, kind of depend on this stuff. So them overturning a lot of these species on ban lists definitely affected some people. But I think as a whole, a lot of people do need to realize that that tegus in particular are a potential problem species, and to stop them early is the best move. That's my personal opinion.
Sure.
Yeah. As far as terrapins go, that's where it gets really interesting, because obviously being a biologist, conservation is on the forefront of my mind all the time. I think species need to be protected, and I think terrapins should definitely be protected. And I'm in favor of better conservation laws on terrapins and the protection. But I'm not sure I fully agree with the blanket ban on Diamondback terrapins in the state of Florida. Just because human nature is, when something is banned, what does everybody then want?
That animal.
The animal that potentially drives up demand, and that scares me. You can just look at the records and look at the areas in the counties that I work in, and there's been massive busts with people that were illegally catching box turtles, terrapins, selling them, exporting them over to China. There was a big case that happened last fall, I believe. I think it was like an FWC and U.S. Fish and Wildlife like joint bust of a fella in this region. He had thousands of turtles on his person. So and obviously he was a guy in Florida that got it, but I think the blanket ban may have a bigger impact on people in Florida, but not stop people that are going to come out of town to then start pillaging the turtles. And that worries me, that the demand will go up if there's a blanket ban. So but FWC has been very very good about listening to different opinions. I've discussed some things with folks about some alternatives, and then they have those open dialogue meetings a lot of times that I do think a lot of the biologists listen to and are very receptive of. So I think that's the key, is maintaining a dialogue and using science. As we've seen, like a lot of you folks deal with a lot of the Asian turtle species that are effectively, extinct in the wild at this point in time. But because there's strong captive breeding efforts for them in captivity, their price has gone down substantially. Like, what is it?
Quangtongues?
Yes, that's like the quangtongue turtles.
Look at you.
There's another one that I'm blanking. It's not, is it Ambenensis? Maybe it's Ambenensis.
There's a lot.
No, you're thinking of Anamensis, the Vietnamese.
Anamensis, that's what it is. The Vietnamase pond turtle.
Those two always go together. The nigricons and the Anamensis.
Yeah. So like those were, for at one point in time, they were fetching thousands of dollars, to get them from the wild. Now, what are they, like a $20 turtle, $30 turtle?
Yeah, quangtongues 25 to 50. I see.
Yeah. So I think that there is a place in captive propagation and captive breeding for a lot of these species, because if suddenly a bunch of them are available, I mean, is it worth it to go out into the wild and snatch a bunch of them?
No.
Probably not. So I think there's definitely a room for that. And some people that at the last meeting brought up the idea, well, look at alligators. Alligators were almost extinct in Florida in the 70s. They opened up alligator farms, captive breeding, controlled collection. I personally would not want any sort of controlled collection on wild terrapins, but captive breeding, I think, is something that could be a very effective conservation tool, especially highly regulated. I'm talking like, pit tag all of the animals, photo documentation, so you know what an individual looks like, so you know exactly the amount of stock that people have. I think that could be good. But then it goes back to enforcement. These poor FWC officers, I mean, they're already under, overstretched and overworked as it is. So enforcing that just adds another tool or another thing they have to do in an already kind of a stressful situation. So I get where they're coming from with the enforcement issues, and but I'm really hoping that a compromise that can truly benefit the species can be had, and I'm happy to kind of help broker from both sides because I do see it from both sides.
So I got a question for you. Florida is rare in the fact that they're one of the few native states for terrapins that actually do have a controlled capture rate. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's something like, is it one per day, like one every 24 hours, but you can only have like two in your at once?
100%. Yeah. So they have like a free take right now. It's one per person per day, up to two on your person at a time. So if you have a household of 4, you could have potentially 8 terrapins. Yeah.
Sure.
So you can have terrapins, and that's one thing I do support in the new change is they're going to ban any collection of wild terrapins directly. Good. I think that's 100% what needs to be happening. In fact, I'm pro an immediate moratorium now, because even just the chatter about there being a change in the laws, there's a bunch of people like, well, I'm gonna go get my 2. I got to go get my 2 now because I'm not going to be able to have them in a few months. I want to get grandfathered in. So I really wish a moratorium would go into effect as soon as possible, just to prevent that from happening. Because if 300 people want their 2, I mean, who knows what kind of damage could happen to populations. So I mean,
specifically, if they're going past the population that has a really small range, like rhinos or whatnot.
Yep.
It's a very very micro range.
Yep.
But how do you foresee them controlling that? Like, how do I prove that the 2 that I have were not wild caught? It's one thing when they're adult and you can kind of see like that macrocephalic head or that the carapace is really worn down, but when it comes to captive bred animals, it's not always the case.
Right. Yeah. See, that's where the enforcement issue comes into play. Some people talked about like plastron scanning. There's like a technology where you can like scan plastrons with imagery and stuff like that. But that's the big question, is how can we really truly enforce it? I think a lot of it would come down to the fact that, and this is something that I don't know that has worked super well in the past, but there's got to be some level of self-policing in captive breeders and things like that. Like there's people that all of us know that you're like, oh, I've got this captive bred turtle, but it's a freaking, rhizoforum, from the Keys, and there's no way that's a captive bred mangrove terrapin. I mean, there's no way. I mean, there's very few, if any, people that have actually successfully bred those, just because of the highly intense conditions that they need. So I think when people post that kind of stuff, that hey, I'm selling this, these are captive hatched mangrove terrapins, probably not.
Captive hatch.
Yeah, true. I guess that's a workaround. I mean, if you collect eggs too.
Brought them home,
exactly. Sounds like Turtle Dave Summers, from the Northeast there. Captive hatched, because I stole thousands of eggs over decades. So,
Are you referencing Dave in PA?
Yes, that's exactly it. Dave in PA. The world's worst kept secret. I can't believe that guy was able to operate for so long.
It's like 10
Ship
years.
them to you in a cereal box.
Yeah. It's way worse. Actually, listen, my first terrapin was from him. Actually, because I didn't know any better.
I think he literally facilitated the original terrapin trade as pets. I think he was the one that everybody who got a terrapin, they got him from Dave in his wild collection.
Yeah, but it was like $25. It was in a pillowcase wrapped up, like a small pillowcase with duct tape. I was like, how did this thing even survive the trip here?
And how many, if that's the one that survived, how many didn't survive?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Right. Sure. That's the terrifying thing. Yeah, what were we talking about? We sidetrack.
Sorry, man.
Yeah. No. So yeah, like self-policing. I think that's got to be a big aspect. If you see somebody that's selling something or hawking something that shouldn't be, I think calling people out publicly is a big thing. Especially if people in the trade, hey, you're giving us all a bad name if you're trying to sell that animal. And we all know, like, I like to keep stuff. I've got my own captive critters, but I've never been one that likes to put a monetary number on animals. Like, I love to keep turtles. I love to breed turtles, but I never sell one. I don't like to do. I like to breed them. I'm a reproductive biologist, so I love the whole experience of that. I'm just happy giving them to somebody so they go to a good home and they can enjoy them the same way. So I guess I have a hard time seeing it from the monetary side. So that's where I don't sympathize as much from a lot of people on the breeders out there, because it's never been, my way in is making money off the animals. So I don't really sympathize that much. But I definitely sympathize in terms of being able to keep the animals, because people like me, and some people I know were probably inspired to pursue conservation pathways because we grew up keeping critters. And I think that is definitely a very viable thing to encourage future conservation. Is some people can keep turtles, and that's going to trigger that response to want to protect them. So I think that is definitely something that should be considered.
Completely agree. You've said so many things that have spoken to me so much, so deeply. I agree.
Yeah, it's what I do. It's what I do.
Really. You're pulling at my heartstrings over here. The self-policing thing, I think, is a great point. I feel like I'm always the really old guy in the room when I talk about the days of, like, the forums and the days before Facebook. When it wasn't just about the classifieds, it wasn't just about what you could get for an animal, and if you were full of crap, then somebody would call you out on it. And on Facebook, everyone will call you out whether you're full of it or not.
Yeah.
But then it seems sometimes when you are doing shadier things, sometimes you're going to have a bunch of people who sing your praises and a bunch of people who call you out. I think that's the problem. I think people get called out, but I think it just falls on deaf ears because Facebook is this sea of negative.
Yeah. Social media in general, it's so toxic these days. Right. Like,
and it doesn't matter what you say. Somebody's going to disagree. Somebody's going to agree, whether you're, exploiting animals or not.
The other day, media is feelings, not facts.
Yeah, exactly.
It's feelings, not facts.
Yeah, no. Just the other day, I was on a tortoise page on Facebook, and someone posted the picture of their sulcata next to a gopher tortoise, and that's one of the most terrible things you could ever do. Not only because potential your sulcata interfering with the tortoise, but gopher tortoises are well-known pathogen reservoirs, and they spread mycoplasma. They can spread potentially rhinovirus and all sorts of nasty diseases, and that could be spread to and from the animal. So I put just a very, not yelling at them, just saying, hey, you want to probably separate those animals, make sure they don't come in contact with each other so that they don't pass pathogens. And then like 3 or 4 people were like, what a party pooper. I mean, just ignore the negative comments. I'm like, right. I don't know what's negative about wanting your tortoise and the wild tortoise to survive. And also, the last thing they need is people saying, oh, hey, sulcatas can transmit disease to wild gopher tortoises. Guess who's going to the ban list next, right? So, that's how you prevent that stuff from happening, is being responsible and preventing that kind of stuff from occurring. Right. So, yeah.
That's such a good point. And honestly, to be honest, as encouraging as it is to speak with somebody who gets it, it's so entirely draining and defeating, and it's just horrible. Steve is blowing his nose in our ears right now. This is the greatest thing ever.
Welcome to the Booger Podcast.
At least the guests can't hear it. That's all that matters.
Goodness gracious. Well, it was only the second time it happened. That's why I had to say it. But yeah, that's just totally. Thanks for being such a downer. Thanks for bringing the whole mood down. I appreciate it. But it's true though. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I forever referred to myself as a hopeless optimist. It was me. I was so optimistic. I had no chance in life. I was just floating around, love life, love the sound of the birds chirping, the smells of the world around me. Everything made me happy. And even if it was gross or sad, I could find the beauty in it and the silver lining or whatever. Being a turtle person through my adult life has turned me into such a negative version of myself, because it makes you a realist and it makes you see. And I think that's the difficulty too, because you're working with people who, like, ignorance is bliss. They're coming in, they're excited, and you have to be like the I don't know, the source of reality for them, the dose of reality to say, no, like, yeah, we all love turtles. We all grew up loving turtles, but here's the real situation that they're faced with. Here's the stupidity that they face in the world. And and it's almost like, what is that like? Can you tell me what that experience is like a little bit?
I mean,
I'm sure they listen. They're interested, right? It's why they're in the program. But
yes. So I've had nothing but really great experience with like my students coming into the program, which I don't know that a lot of people can say. I don't know if that's because I've been very selective with the students that I've sort of recruited, or if I've just been very lucky. But all of my students have been absolutely awesome. They hit the ground running. They're motivated, and they realize, the opportunity that they've been given, and they take it very seriously. They're not out there posting, images that could reveal what we're working on social media. I mean, they're allowed to post some images of them doing the work and stuff like that. That's totally fine. But they've all got like their GPS turned off, so there's no chance to trace images back to where we're at. And it is a little heartbreaking sometimes when I gotta break the scenarios about some of the stuff that's going on. It's like we're working here, but in 10 years, if development happens, this population that we've been working so hard on, they could be gone. So it is a little bit of a bummer to be the realist, but I mean, these students, they're the future. They're the ones that are going to be advocating for these animals in the future. They're the ones that are going to be hitting the ground running in the next year. So I take my job very seriously with that, and I'm very, very fortunate to have students that really are passionate and are sharing my passion for what we're doing.
Jordan, how long have you been teaching this for?
This would be almost my second year.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, almost second year.
Okay, so all right, so have you had former students like reach back out and was like, hey, I want to keep this going past school? What can I do to kind of get in with you?
Yeah, so one of my students, actually, who he's I think he's got one more class, but he ran out of taking all of his credits for this course. He's like, hey, I really want to keep working with you. So we put a grant proposal together internally, and we got him hired on as a tech for like the last 6 months. So he's working part-time, tracking turtles. Adrian, if you're watching, we appreciate you, buddy. He's great.
That's so cool.
Yeah, he's awesome. And he's such a turtle nerd that he's like, hey, I know my stipend runs out like in June, but can I keep volunteering through the rest of the summer before I start, going on to the next school? It's like, well, of course, I can't just say no. He's been awesome. But
is it Adrian Ventura?
Not Adrian Ventura. Not Adrian. Oh, that is Adrian. I think that's like his name. His full name's Adrian Rodriguez, but that must be him, Adrian Ventura. Yeah, that must be him.
He's watching right now. He said you are the GOAT.
Appreciate that, buddy.
Professor Donini, the GOAT.
Nice. Yeah, great kid.
Donini.
Yep. Watch for his name in the future. He's going to be a good one.
That's so awesome.
Whether it's turtles or other wildlife, he's awesome. Him and one of my other students, Jackie Drew, they're working on writing their first paper this week. They've been going ham on some box turtle literature, so they've been doing a great job.
Awesome. Now, are you primarily doing Bowery?
Yep, all Bowery. Yeah, we're sticking the peninsula. We're not going anywhere near the Panhandle, so it's all Bowery. We're Florida box turtle specifics down here.
Now, how far down? You may not know this, but how far down do majors go?
Majors? Well, it's interesting. There's a lot of areas where there's kind of these weird zones. Like Ken Dodd, if you're familiar with Ken Dodd, he's like the god of box turtles, basically, right? Dodd the god, I guess. But
2001.
I visited his house with Chris Lekowitz a couple of years back, and he's like, "Here, look at this turtle, this box turtle that was found here in Gainesville." Like in Gainesville, it was a major. It was a freaking major, and he's like, "Yeah, I've seen several of them like that here in Gainesville." So that phenotype, it could go as far as Central Florida potentially. I think it's obviously going to be more common up in the Panhandle, but I think there's weird ones that pop up. And are they true major? Are they residual Putnami that are popping up somewhere? Some Putnami gene? Who knows?
Yeah.
I just that's like my lifelong mission is I want to find the last Putnami. And for those of you that don't know what Putnami are, they're like a classically like gopher sword tortoise size box turtle. They're extinct. And they're about the size of a gopher tortoise. They're, big old black turtles.
Well, that's the thing. So like you got the Gulf Coast majors, then you have like the Louisiana like brown majors,
Yeah. The three-toe mixer majors.
yeah. But the Gulf Coast ones are like way larger, and they're like super dark. They get those white faces. Like I'm not sure how that could be like kind of locality issue. Although I do know like with Anthony and the Asian species, you get like the Japanese reasons are way larger than the Chinese reasons. They're the same.
Those are introduced though.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, but introduce. Yeah. Okay, I gotcha. Sorry,
and just so everyone knows too, I apologize. It's Kevin's first night on the podcast, but the major is the Gulf
Coast box turtles. Yes, turtle jargon.
Box turtle. The Bowery is the Florida box turtle. Which is the same scientific name given to the three-striped mud turtle, although spelled differently because the box turtle only has one eye.
Yes, EI versus I.
Right, pronounced EI. Bowery.
Yeah.
No, Steve's saying no.
He's arguing.
Steve's going wild.
Don't get him started. Don't get him started.
Well, hang on. Let me ask this: Are you guys Kilonian people or are you Chilonians?
Kilonian.
Thank you. Thank God.
Yes, of course.
Good. We can stay friends now. We can stay friends.
So Steve and I went through all this like 12 years ago at nauseum. Steve is trained in Latin. But then we also have the love of the turtles, and going by the Latin name because that's the easier way to do it. So if you're newer to this and you're like, what the heck are they talking about when they say rhizo? That would be what is that? A Keys terrapin? The terrapin from the Keys?
That's the mangrove.
The mangrove terrapin. Sorry,
that's what the rhizo is.
Call them rhizo. Yeah. But it's easier
mangrove.
to go by scientific names. But the difficult thing is that we say about 75 of them wrong, but it's not anyone's fault. Like when you take a species and you name it after a German researcher and then give it a Latin ending on the end of the word, like how are you supposed to pronounce that? Anyway. I'll get off that soapbox now, but Kevin will do better in the future.
So they're pronounced the same. So it's Bowery with one eye and two eyes are pronounced the same.
No, he would say like e or bar e or something, right? What would you say, Steve? Tell me.
We're gonna take a half a second break so Steve can talk to us. Then we'll tell you.
Okay, sounds good.
Please hold with news from your sponsors.
Okay.
The first I is an sound. And then E or I, depending on the school of Latin. See? Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Steve.
So this goes back to the whole
Bowery. I don't know, what is it?
It goes back. He's still talking.
Bowery.
He's still happening. Bowery. So what's happening here is the same thing we talked about with your students is that the more you learn, the more you realize how effed up the world is. And you realize you just want to go back to calling them Hamiltonize.
Yes.
Okay. Which is the Indian spotted pond turtle.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it Hamilton Hamilton Hamilton
I'm just going to stick with the I. I'm just calling Bowery. Sorry, Steve.
Stick with
I do want to. For our 26 viewers on YouTube, I do want you to know that about 5 years ago, I didn't know a single scientific name. I really knew of like 9 turtles, the stuff that I grew up around, and it wasn't until getting in with the turtle room guys that I started doing more research and doing this. And now I like to say the scientific names because I feel more important, even though I'm not, So
I can remember you saying back then, like, oh, I'm not really into scientific names. And I remember saying it myself. It's just something you say because you don't know them yet. But
I didn't know them,
And it's so funny though because there's a lot of like academic journals that are actually pushing more towards standardized English names with herps.
Mm-hmm.
So like I just had a paper that may be accepted pending revisions, which would be good on snakes. I do little snake stuff too. Fingers crossed. But like one of the editor's comments, he's like, "Hey, you should just go with the common name after first introducing it for the rest of the paper." I was like, "Oh, that's interesting," because I usually abbreviate it as like first letter of the genus. Species. He says I would go with the standardized English for the rest. I was like, oh, that was kind of an interesting, refreshing take. I had not really seen that before. So
I don't like it, Jordan.
I'm
a Latin nerd at my heart. I've been learning this stuff since I was, in literally in elementary school. I had a book that had Latin names in it. My mom was teaching me dinosaur Latin names, which is common names for dinosaurs too, right? They're all Latin names. So like I've always been into that kind of stuff, but I'm like, it could be like, I think what Kevin was saying, it could be more accessible to people if it's, Nerodia fasciata instead of that, it's the southern water snake. So it might be a little bit more accessible, but I'm always going to be a Latin nerd at heart.
But what if the common name is Western Blackbridge leaf turtle? Then you write out leaf turtle every time, but then it gives you the genus.
I think that's the idea, though, is that they're standardizing English names to make them more recognizable. So like the southern water snake encompasses like all the subspecies that are there, but the bandids, the Floridas, etc. They're all the southern water snake. So it's kind of more of a lumping system, I guess. But the SSAR, they're standardized English names. I mean, a lot of them make sense, and I can dig on them.
All right, if the SSAR is doing it, I'm in.
Yeah.
But around the world, you have different, like, people in the UK just call all turtles terrapins, right?
Right.
That's like just what they're called.
Right.
Even over where you have like badgers, there's terrapins. They're not,
when I was in Africa, every turtle was a terrapin except for tortoises.
Yeah.
Kevin won't talk about turtles unless it involves the word terrapin.
Steve
was holding up a book called Latin Names Explained.
Oh,
how good is that?
I like it.
This is the level of nerd you're dealing with.
Can you send me the link to that, or give me because I would probably need that in my library.
That's a big book, man. It looks like it's about 1,800 pages.
I just like it as a reference. It'd be nice. It'd be nice as a reference just to have, because I'm a nerd like that. So
that's ridiculous.
Yeah. We got our buddy Greg says that common names are becoming a flaming train wreck at an Arizona rave, which I find to be pretty funny.
Tell me how you really feel, Greg.
Yeah. So it depends on whose common names you're talking about. I mean, I really do feel the SSAR standardized names are kind of shaping things up. But again, talking to people in Europe versus the United States when it comes to stuff, you can get so many confusions because there's water snakes over there. There's grass snakes over there. So definitely up to a lot of difference over there. But what can you do?
Interesting. It's really interesting. Now, you said you work with snakes too, and I would be we would have to have you back for a second one for sure next month if I didn't ask you about this stuff. So you are basically you are 100% into reproduction. I was going to call you like the turtle gynecologist, which is
so in my grad school office, I originally had that, but I was like, I don't want to sound crude, so I changed it to like colonian sex therapist was like my label on my office desk. So
it's totally crude and inappropriate.
But reproductive biology is my jam. I've been fascinated with reproductive animals since I was like in high school, because like I had bearded dragons and when I was a freshman in high school, and I bred them, and I was like, man, I just can't believe how many clutches of eggs this lizard is popping out. This is so freaking cool. And I can't believe like the intervals between her clutches. This is such neat stuff. And that's always kind of been in my mind. And I've kind of converted into a love of endocrinology. Because I mean, what controls sex but the hormones, and that's kind of been one of my specialties in recent years is specifically colonian endocrinology, and looking at how endocrinology influences sexual timing and reproductive seasonality in species in several different parts of their range. So that's kind of my big thing that I'm focusing on right now.
Now, are you focusing on a specific animal? Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and yes. I've got, not to brag, but I got a couple of papers out there you can look up on some terrapin.
ResearchGate.net.
Yeah, it's free on ResearchGate, or I can email you copies. Don't worry about that paywall, bull. I got you covered.
Send it over.
We've got a couple of papers. I did one on terrapins in Florida, in Southwest Florida specifically. Working with Chris Lekowitz, we sampled the Diamondback Terrapins during at least a portion of their typical nesting season, as well as in the wintertime. And what we think is that there's an extended reproduction in the southern part of the range based on the hormonal signature that we looked at. And that's how we measure it. We take blood samples and we run either what are called radioimmunoassays, where you basically have a radioactive isotope that you mark your samples with, and how high that is basically determines how high the specific hormone you're targeting is. Or you do what's called an enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay, or ELISA for short, which you basically have a specialized marker that binds to a specific chemical or whatever hormone you're looking at in the ELISA that kind of gives you a predicted quantity that's in the chemistry, without getting too crazy lab sciencey. That's the main ways. But we so I've done terrapins, and I've got another, again, humble brag. Another paper on terrapins coming out from Louisiana. We've done it in gopher tortoises down here in Southwest Florida with one of my undergrad mentors, Dr. Phil Allman. You guys may have crossed paths with him at TSA. He did a lot of work with canixies over in Ghana and West Africa, one of my early mentors on the subject. So we put one out on gopher tortoises down here. And then right now we're doing it in the box turtles, and we're finding some wicked crazy stuff out with the box turtles. And my ultimate goal is to do hormonal profiles of every turtle species that lives in South Florida, because South Florida is what we call down here different. Because no winter.
More so around the people too.
That too. There's no winter down here. There's no winter. No brumation. Yes. They go inactive for like a couple days at a time. So they can eat year round. They can acquire energy year round. What impact does that have on reproductive seasonality? Is there reproductive seasonality? So there's a whole buttload of questions to get into with every species, because they're all kind of different. Some of them are kind of the same, and that's kind of what I want my life's work to effectively be.
Sure. Have you looked into differences in sexual reproduction as far as like how old they're? I mean, it's based on size, not age.
Age, right? Like,
yeah.
That's definitely something I want to look into. That's a little bit harder because number one, you got to find a bunch of juveniles, and then you got to find them again when they're adults.
Yeah.
But in the box turtle population we're working at, that's possible. We have like 30 recaptures of juvenile turtles, which is like apparently unprecedented.
Unprecedented for box turtle work.
For Florida box turtles, I know for specifically, I don't know as much of the literature of like the eastern box turtles, but we've got growth data over a year now, and we found some turtles last year that didn't have any really secondary sexual characteristics. Now all of a sudden they've got a little indentation in their plastron. We're like, it's a boy. This is great. So we're actually seeing when maturity may hit. But also down here, there's not really that winter, like, growing season. So you can't like count annuli on the scoots to age them, because they're growing perpetually year round, because they don't go inactive. So it's very likely that they're maturing faster down here. I would almost guarantee it. But hopefully we can show that, because I'm taking blood samples from any turtles that are around 100 millimeters in carapace length, trying to convert that to inches. And then that will help us kind of look at when those sex hormones get high enough, that's an indication of sexual maturity. So we can almost kind of map that out, which will be really interesting.
Now, are you testing?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, can you test that on, or is it the same markers on every single species of turtle, or do you have to like adjust it to like when you have to figure that out?
So there's key hormones you look at, and they're actually the same hormones that do most of the work in human bodies. Testosterone, big male androgen, also prominent in females for ovarian development. Estradiol 17 beta is the main female sex hormone. Same thing in humans. Progesterone, P4, same thing in humans. We those are kind of the main targets. My graduate advisor, he's a sea turtle guy, but his lab developed an assay to look at a reproductive protein that's filled in the eggs called vitellogenin. That's what basically makes up the predominant egg yolk protein in eggs. He developed an enzyme, ELISA, that can predict the quantities of that circulating in blood plasma of turtles, and that can be an indicator of reproductive, because if they've got a lot of vitellogenin, that indicates they're going to be able to deposit that into eggs, so that can be used for reproductive timing as well. But all of them correspond to one another. There's a lot of cascades and chemical formulas and pathways that connect all of those together, and it's just really interesting to see how they network and trigger these different events, and it's been really cool to work on.
Your students are so lucky. It's crazy. Let me
stop.
Can I just say that's the coolest thing, because for an article that I wrote on a method for keeping neonate box turtles specifically, but also some of the, I would say, like non-sun worshipping turtles too, like exclude your sliders and your painted turtles and things like that.
And your graptomes and those kind of guys,
yeah. But things like wood turtles and some of the Asian leaf turtles and the core of the Asian box turtles, and even though they bask a lot, young Blandings turtles, like research in general, and there are several researchers who say it right in their research, where they've had these studies for years and years, sometimes decades, with some of the box turtle studies, that they just talk about how they're devoid of neonate and juvenile data, because they're just not finding them, because they spend all their time hiding. They're in wet muck all the time, and the thought of bright sunlight would be entirely threatening to them and stressful for them. So the fact that you're finding them at your study site just like gets me all excited about what you got here in South
and it's
Florida.
Really cool because it's really funny because I've heard from captive keepers of box turtles all about the way they keep them. We keep them in like basically aquatic grow up tubs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the places we're finding the predominant number of these box turtles are aquatic habitat. These hatchlings, they're living in fully aquatic habitats in the wild.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. So there's a link right there between captive and wild stuff right there. I think there's a lot that the researchers can learn from captive associations, because I mean the detailed records that some people keep of growth rates, of food preference, even that could definitely lead to clues to where we can look for and target in wild populations. And that was one of the coolest things that I saw. I was like, okay, they're using microhabitat that basically looks like those little grow up tubs that they use at like the TSA Survival Center. They're using that in the wild. The coolest freaking thing. It was so mind blowing.
Yeah. But so interesting for future research. I'll be quiet, but because I don't want to take away your opportunity to write a paper about that. But you're finding neonates and juveniles, and no one else is. Like that's crazy cool.
Yeah, we've probably got close to 50 in a year, about a year's time, which is
Steve can tell you how excited we get when at one of our study sites they find a young wood turtle.
It's and the recapture stuff is the craziest, because when you see hatchling turtles you expect, oh, this turtle's dead, I'm going to see it now and I'm never going to see it again because something's going to eat it. But we've caught not all of the hatchlings and neonates, but we've caught several that are probably maybe yearling turtles, and we've captured them multiple times, some of them hundreds of yards away from where we originally saw them. So we think there may be a little bit of a switcheroo. There's like a micro habitat, they grow up a certain time in and then they disperse. So the next step is hopefully getting some micro radio transmitters to put on juveniles so we can track their dispersal. That's the hope.
So two-part question for you. Actually, just two questions, not two parts.
Okay.
The first question is, you were discussing, tracking data and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
So what are you guys personally using to track that data, when you take measurements and whatnot?
So home range is kind of the big thing that we do. So we actually have radio transmitters attached to our turtles, and we go out and manually find them with a telemetry device twice a week to kind of just get at least minimum home range estimates with these things called minimum convex polygons that basically connect like the forest perimeter points at like an angle less than 180 degrees, and they make a geometric shape, and that shows you the minimum amount of space that an animal uses based on all of your data points. So we use telemetry, and then we just do what we call meandering surveys, and they're exactly what they sound like. We go and meander around the habitat until you trip over some turtles, and that's how we kind of just collect our individuals to look at population estimates, morphological data, how big they are. We're doing some dietary studies as well, which is really cool. We're finding maybe they're a dispersal agent for some invasive plants down here. We're going to look into that, which is really interesting. And we're basically all of the old school life history data that you could collect from a species. That's what we're doing. So many things these days I think are geared towards like the omics and the molecular biology. And obviously being a reproductive biologist, I'm into some molecular stuff, but I think there's a lot of love lost for natural history information. And that's arguably more important, and I think in terms of conserving animals. And that's not to say that genetics and omics aren't an extremely important tool for conservation, but understanding how an animal interacts with its environment, I think that's imperative for conservation success. And that's what our goal is we want to know everything about these animals, and we never will, but that's our goal, is to learn everything about them and these habitats to further protect them. The more we know, the better we can protect them.
So that's perfect. That brings me to my second part of the question, or the second question. And
it's like I'm a professional, huh?
Yeah, you're good, man. You're good. You're super modest too. I love that.
I'm the most modest person I know.
Most gingers are, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, some of us don't like the G word.
I apologize for my derogatory statements. So back to that question. Are radio transmitters like the best way? That just seems really antiquated and old. Like, can there be some kind of like literally very small GPS tracker that you can see the actual patterns that they're walking?
That's a great question. So we actually just got a grant from the Cincinnati Zoo. If you folks might be familiar with Ryan Dumas at the Cincinnati Zoo. I think he's part of like the Kinesi's working group, and he's a great captive keeper. He approached me, social media. He said, "Hey, my zoo wants to support conservation project. Your project looks awesome based on your photos." It's exactly the words you use, of course. I'm not paraphrasing at all. But he said, "Hey, your project looks like a great one we'd want to support." So he reached out to me, and they provided us with a conservation grant for GPS transmitters. So they actually make GPS transmitters that are small enough to fit on box turtles and gopher tortoises and wood turtles right now, and not take up an overall large mass of the shell. Are you guys still hearing me? The screen's kind of staticky. I'm just making sure you can.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just make sure my connection's still good.
I can hear you great. Yeah.
Yep, but they're roughly the same size as radio transmitters, maybe just a smidgen bigger, but they can log data every hour or more, depending on battery life, how much battery you want to exercise. But you can basically get a data point every hour for every day for 30 days before you have to recharge the battery. The only problem is you got to be able to recover the GPS to upload data. So we're going to use those in combination with radio telemetry tags. We're going to put both on and use the radio telemetry tags basically just to refine the turtles to upload the data. So we're going to be this summer, we're going to be putting those on. And as technology keeps getting smaller and smaller, the hope is that we're going to be able to get really hands off with a lot of this stuff in the future. The Georgia Sea Turtle Center and the Orion Society, and there's another group out of Georgia, the Applied Wildlife Ecology Lab, there are doing a lot of projects. They've actually got solar GPS transmitters that get charged by the sun, so you don't even have to worry about battery charging.
Yeah, because they're out there anyway.
The freaking coolest thing on the planet. Like, I mean, technology is making things so on the table now. I mean, I'm sure they're expensive for someone like me right now, but eventually that's going to get to a price where I'm going to be able to afford it. And that's just going to open up a whole new world of data collection and in terms of what we do. So it's really
Jordan,
cool.
I'm in the telecom industry. I manage T-Mobile stores.
Oh,
and
awesome.
The big thing right now is 5G. That's what's rolling around, and the potential advancements it's going to cause or to create, I should say, and theoretically, it's all theoretical at this point, but within the next 2 to 3 years, you'll probably have stuff like, if it's targeted for that will blow your mind, man.
I'm so here for it, man. I'm so here for it.
Even right now, you can get one of those little tiles. They're like the size of a quarter, right? Those things have a battery life over a year.
Yeah, we actually
do that on your own.
So funny you say that. We don't put them on turtles, but we put them on our field equipment, like our calipers. So if we leave it, we're like, oh, I gotta go find my calipers.
Yeah.
Like, we can just ring it.
When you can just hit your phone. Yeah, exactly. And the turtle's keeping like, where is it? It's over there.
No, like honestly, like I've considered. I'm like, okay, these are pretty lightweight. I don't know how waterproof they are, but I want to stick one on a juvenile turtle. Because if they're occupying really minuscule home ranges, like I think they are at certain life stages, maybe the tiles can be a good temporary dispersal mechanism. So maybe I just need to invest in a couple of those $20 tiles and see how it goes.
Reach out to me first. I might be able to get them for you at a discount.
Oh, okay. Hey, look at this connections right there. This is what it's all about.
Not big, but I get like a little discount. And
any discount is good for for Professor. We don't make quite the big bucks. We make enough the big bucks.
Sure, yeah.
You just have to list Kevin as like the last author on the paper.
And you know what? There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are like, oh, I don't like to add authors to my papers. Animals, like anybody that helps with my research, and I can say my research, but our research, right? Yeah. If you contribute, you're on the freaking paper. I'm not shy or selfish about that. Like collaboration is how stuff gets done. Keeping stuff and hoarding it to yourself, that's not how it should be done. And I think there's a lot of old school scientists that are very protective. I mean, obviously we're all protective of our sites and things like that, but they're protective of sharing the wealth and I'm not that way. I want to include the next generation. I want to include the upcoming students and get people out there, and I want to include other people too. So yeah, I'm not shy. I have no issue with adding another author. We could have 40 authors on a paper. Who cares?
Okay, awesome.
If they're all as long as they're all contributing.
I got 2 questions for you from people in the chat.
Sure.
They're kind of the same question, and one of them was already answered. So I think it was answered. So I'm going to start with this first one. It's from Charlie Moorcroft from the Moorcroft Conservation Foundation, our buddy. how large is an average range of the Florida box turtle?
Great question. We don't know yet. We're still working on that. Chris Lekowitz is working on a similar population, so he's got some data and he's got some pretty wide-ranging data. But I'm not going to spoil his surprise stuff. But one site we work at is restricted by barriers. Like they can't freely leave this area because it's like preserve land. So there's fence along the borders. So that has inhibited their range. So most of them are somewhere around like 1 to 2 hectares, somewhere in between that much in that space.
What's a hectare?
A hectare is a unit of measurement, and I cannot think of the exact comparison for acres off the top of my head. Somebody do the analysis for me. I just gave a talk on it the other day, and it just slipped my mind about what the acreage and the square mileage was. I literally converted it, and it's blanking right now.
1 hectare is 2.47 acres.
Okay, there you go. So 1 to 2 hectares gives you about double that in acreage.
Yeah, 5 acres.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good amount of movement.
Yeah, but based off of like the misinformation you hear online that a box turtle has like a 1 mile
1 mile radius, right?
Yeah,
that's the maximum that we're seeing with minimum convex polygons. Most of the turtles we're seeing have moved less than like 200 feet in the year that we've been tracking them.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
I mean, if the food source is there, what's the point?
Right. But then there's 1 or 2 that are like, okay, we're here for 6 months, and then we can't find them. We're like, and then a quarter mile away, that animal has moved. We're like, oh my God. So I think that whole, like, you see that Facebook post, never move a box turtle because, you're moving it out of its home range. Well, I don't think that's entirely, I mean, I think the overall, it's meant to be a good thing, don't take the turtle home, basically. Move it if you can, but if that turtle's in an area that's completely developed, maybe finding the closest patch of scrub habitat would be a good thing nearby, as long as you're not taking them like 20 miles out of the way. A lot of times those turtles are probably going to be fine and will probably reestablish home ranges. But it's obviously there's so many variables that play to it, but yeah, their home ranges are still pretty variable, and we're definitely seeing there's a seasonality component to it. They move a lot more in the wet season, because we know down here in South Florida we don't have fall, spring, winter, summer. We have summer and slightly cooler summer, basically. But so
you got like a week of like 20 degrees, 30 degrees.
Not down here, man. It didn't get below 40 down here, so
no.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a blessing.
Still below 40 up here.
Yeah. So they definitely seem to move during rainfall peak periods more than the dry season, which would make sense. More food availability as stuff gets growing. Maybe more interactions with females, but one spoiler I'll say is we found them breeding in every month of the year. So we found in courtship every month of the year, which isn't unexpected of males, I guess. So
yeah.
Opportunistic, and then at any point during the year down there, it's going to be warm.
Yeah,
especially during the day. They bunker down for the night, and then the sun comes out and it warms up. And
we had a little cold snap come through. It was 52 this morning. By the time we finished surveys today, we were on the field today actually. It was like 78 degrees and sunny, so it was like perfect turtle weather, and they were all out moving after they'd been buried all day. So.
Oh, I'm not going to say anything. This is a family show. I'm not going to tell you what I think about you right now. It's okay.
Y'all are pretty familiar with Jordan Gray, I assume, right?
Yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah,
that's another one of his main crushes.
Yeah. Well, Jordan Gray's. I mean, is that not just the most handsome son of a gun on the planet, right? God,
I know.
Good-looking fella, but I send him texts just to make him angry. Sometimes I feel like. Kisses from sunny Southwest Florida, and I'll send him a picture of me with like 10 box turtles in my hands, in the middle of winter, just to let him know you may know more about turtles than me. You may be more handsome than me, but look what I'm doing right now. Just to humble him a little bit.
Jordan, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and in my eyes, you're Irish, so you're gorgeous.
Hey, I appreciate it, buddy.
At least I want bringing back to the beginning of the conversation.
I've been doing this show for like 4 years now, Anthony.
And something like that.
Yeah, and I think my wife has watched like 3 times, and tonight's one of them. And she wanted me to post out when I said I wasn't Italian. She wrote to she texted me that your wife is Italian AF. So she wanted you guys to know that my kids are now Italian. I guess I forgot all about that.
Nice. So you do have a little culture in you.
Not all just potatoes over here, you know?
I refer to Kevin as the type specimen because he's just like regular white guy. He hates that and loves it at the same time. I can say it because I'm big. So, you know,
Very good.
Yeah.
I went bald at 25. I got psoriasis. I'm nobody's type specimen.
There you go.
Oh, God. TMI. TMI AF.
It's psoriasis. It's like right here. It's just this dry skin, man.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us. It happens to the best of us.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask one more question? You're having let's bring it away from the disgusting TMI stuff. And so you mentioned one of your mentors in your graduate work that he did in Ghana. I know you've been to Ghana. I assume that's related. Also Costa Rica. So you've got experience in other places. You're so excited about the work you're doing now. Are you do you see yourself as the type who eventually wants to get out and really spend a lot of time traveling and seeing different places? Or is it more important to you to continue to develop what you're setting up right now in beautiful South Florida, a place that people in other parts of the world wish they could get to for research?
Yeah. I mean, I'm living the dream down here, man.
The answer's both.
That's exactly what it is. The answer is both. But why would I want to give this up to go somewhere else? Mm-hmm. Obviously, if an opportunity arose where it was feasible, and a big thing about working abroad is that what I really want to emphasize is that there's often sort of the stigma that, you know, white American dudes go over to foreign countries, they try to do a research project, and they're not inclusive of the actual people that live there. And I hate that. I really hate that, because what's the point of starting an established research project over there if the people aren't going to be involved? And I never want to be that scientist that goes over there and is like, this is how you should do things because I'm from America and I know better. No, that should never be how it is. If the opportunity came to work with people on the ground over there, absolutely, I would love to, but I don't want to I don't ever want to like be one of those guys. And I don't mean to call out, you know, anybody specific, but you see a lot of like animal personalities on some of the big networks that sometimes do that kind of stuff. And I don't want that to be the case with me. Good thing is I've made a lot of good connections with people in those countries where I can either tag on with some of the work that they're doing, or we can develop projects together. And that's a big thing that's really important to me. For instance, I'm actually going to be working on a potential Costa Rica study abroad course, working here in the future with a friend of mine who came into my advisor in grad school's lab after me, but we kind of started discussing things online, and he's got a research program in Costa Rica right now, just right for the picking, permits to work with any animal down there. So we may be doing some cool stuff with like a study abroad course and maybe some long-term studies down there. If things with the pandemic pick up, hopefully that's the hope.
Roughly where in Costa Rica?
Sure.
It's Caribbean Slope area. I worked there for like 4 months doing I don't like to talk about it, but I did sea turtle stuff, you know, sea turtles are I try to keep it on the DL that I once did. Much. I did work with sea turtles because they're
beautiful.
Yeah, they're beautiful, but they're basically glorified marine mammals.
Yeah.
They don't like a lot of the sea turtle people. No offense, and I all my sea turtle people. I know I got mad love, but I pick on them all the time. You know, a lot of them, sea turtles are not really thought of as like the rest of the turtles. Like you can't look at a mud turtle and then see a sea turtle and think, oh, these are relatives, even though phylogenetically they're like very closely related, the two. I did sea turtle work down there for like 4 months, and on one of the classic nesting beaches in Tortuguero, where Archie Carr, you know, kind of started turtle conservation basically, which was fantastic. And this area is kind of in a similar region of there, but there's cooler turtles, I think. There you've got the rhinoclemme species over there, 2 different rhinoclemmes at least. You've got the weird Central American trechemy species down there, which is really cool, as well as
Dorbingi?
I think it's Dorbingi down there. It's or maybe Venusta. I can't remember which one it is because all that taxonomy kind of changed since I've been down there. And then they've got the crazy cool kind of sternons down there, like the Scorpoides and Leucostomum and things like that. So, as well as like South American or Central American snapping turtles, Acuta rostris. It's just so freaking cool. So there's lots of really cool turtle work to be done down there. So I would really love to start some long-term relationships doing work in those regions.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Relationships where you don't take credit for the local people who show you where the turtles are.
Exactly.
For their work.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I love that so much. What's the word for that? What is that umbrella something? So there's an article that just came out talking about Forrest Galante and basically how his show.
It's parachutes conservation or parachute ecology or something like that. Yeah, where you know where someone
you're basically going into those areas.
Yeah.
You say, hey, I'd love to come out there, and they show you great hospitality, and then you publish a show that barely shows their left wrist in one shot.
Exactly, which is
take credit for all your knowledge, and they showed you everything. Or Kevin is typing that I'm going bald. It's the lighting. I'm going bald. Thank you.
You're going bad. Your connection's screwed up.
Yeah, I said you look like you're on a flip phone video right now.
Oh, he wrote bad. Oh, okay. I thought he said I'm going bald.
No, I'm bald.
I see that I'm frozen. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine.
We can hear you.
I can at least.
Oh, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. That's all right. It's okay. Whatever.
Yeah, you're not.
We're gonna wrap it up anyway.
You know?
But Forrest Galante, if you're watching, we want to have you on the podcast. So you can defend
he was supposed to, right?
Your parachute.
You got up there for a while.
Well, he got bigger. Now maybe we can catch him on the downswing.
Yeah.
No, he seems like a nice enough guy. Like I didn't mean to call him out personally. He seems like a nice enough guy, but I
you didn't. You didn't call him out. I did.
Okay, there you go. I brought up the subject.
All love. It's nothing. This is a platform for people to come on and to share their views. So if anyone's out there who doesn't like the way that we've ever mentioned them, then come on and talk to us about it.
Yeah.
So
you can come on and make fun of me being bald.
Can you guys hear me still?
Bad.
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah. Hey, so I'd like to take this opportunity.
We should end the show. Kevin, do you need to do this or should I?
No, I can end it. That's no problem. But I want to end it first with our monthly dad joke of the month. Ooh. So this was sent in from the man behind the curtains, Steve Enders. Yeah, this is for Michael out in the chat. Hopefully he's still out there. He's been waiting for this for a month now. Okay, Jordan, I'm gonna let you answer this if you have the answer for it.
We'll see.
How much room does a fungus need to grow?
As much room as possible. Boom! Boom! Let's go!
You could say that's not, like a herpetological joke, but I have Minoria that eat mushrooms, so it's connected.
There's a connection, absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. That's all we need.
Yep.
Dad jokes and turtles. That's what South Florida does.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally I make my students. I force my students to listen to dad jokes almost every lecture. And then I if they don't laugh, like, oh, maybe if I explain it to you again, it'll make more sense because that makes more funny. And the more groans and cringes I get, the better it is, of course.
Mm-hmm. Jordan, are you a dad?
So funny you ask. I'm about to be.
Congratulations.
How cool is that?
Yeah, we just announced it online, so I guess it's cool to talk about here. But yeah, we've got a baby girl due in July, so very excited.
We all got daughter. 2 girls. So,
yep, that's awesome. I'll have to ask her some dad tips. Yep, I'm gonna be a girl dad. I'm very excited.
The only dad tip you need is to know that everything's just screwed. You're in trouble.
Well, that's fine. My life is manic anyway, but my wife is awesome. So I think we'll get through.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Beautiful
I know
chaos.
Got one more thing you need to say.
Yeah, if you can hear me, let me know at any point if you can't. But first of all, Jordan, I can't thank you enough, man. I could talk to you like forever.
Sounds
infinitely
good.
You are so interesting to me, and so many of your takes were just really similar to how I feel, except more effective in getting them across. I don't know, but you're fun to listen to. You're brilliant, and I can't wait to see where you go. I put you in the running with people like Jordan Gray and Grover and other people who are doing amazing work. And
don't compare me to Grover Brown. That guy's a legend. Grover is a legend, man.
I will.
I'm not in that category yet.
Looking at people who are.
Man.
I put you there.
You can be there.
I'm not saying you're him, but I put you in the conversation. So I can't thank you enough. At the end here, I just want to remind people the Turtle Room right now. We have a donation appeal on our Facebook. If you're willing to support the cause, we're working on some really exciting things right now. You can check it out at theturtleroom.org. And like I said, check out that appeal on the Facebook as well. Jordan, is there anywhere that people can go to support your work?
Yeah, if you just check out, we got an Instagram page, Southwest Florida Turtle Projects, SWFL_turtle_project on Instagram. We have there. We do have a GoFundMe.
We'll put a link to it in this chat.
That'd be cool. Yeah. So we're probably gonna be taking that down shortly, just because the school's actually been very financially supportive of a lot of stuff. But we've gotten a lot of activity actually in the last week for whatever reason. A lot of people were like, "Hey, we like what you're doing. We like seeing what our dollars go to, the research wise, and it's been very cool." But we do have that. So anybody that feels generous, we will accept it.
The link for anyone that's watching, the link is now going to be in the YouTube chat. So if you want to donate to Jordan's cause, that's actually a weird link. So I'm going to have to redo it. It'll be there in a minute.
Fair enough.
Thanks, Kev. I was just going to give you a virtual high five for great work.
No, I got you.
But thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone who tuned in. We'll see you next time. The Pondcast is live the first Monday of every month, unless there's a holiday. And we look forward to seeing you guys next time. Jordan, look forward to seeing you next time. We have you on. It won't be next month. But
next month,
we're going to have you. Yeah.
Well, listen, and, I think this is what I think. I think next month Chris will be back. You guys can just do a full snake talk. He's out there in the field now with snakes all day.
There you go. That sounds good.
Don't remind me.
He's visiting Florida right now, right?
Yeah.
Just
go pop.
Yeah.
So that's not really Florida. That's right.
Yeah. Are you saying Disney's its own enclave?
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
Have you ever been?
Yeah. I've been to Disneyland, not
okay.
World.
Disney World. It's another place, man.
Yeah. And we all have to know about it because we're girl dads, all of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny. When I was on TTPG live stream, we were talking to Russ about it. He's a girl dad, and Chris is a girl dad, and who else? Everyone's a girl dad. Everybody.
That's
awesome. I don't know, it just feels that way anyway. Okay, I'll be quiet. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Till next time.
Thanks for having me, everybody.
Yeah. Bye, guys.